As far as I know, the only way to focus my camera properly is to manually focus it. And the thing about me is that I don't have long enough arms to like properly hit the little focus button. Like I'm not this, you can see the extent. I just have to live my life in the fear that it's never focused. But that is not the point of this wrap-up video. So, I hope y'all had a great February. Let's get into it. I started this month off watching Clouds of Sils Maria for the first time, and it's definitely one of those films I need to rewatch a few times to fully capture everything, but I genuinely loved it. All About Eve and Ingrid Goes West are two of my favorite films, and I think this slots nicely alongside them. I'm always so interested in stories where women deal with aging and fame and society, and this hit all of that with a little mystery thrown in. Also, never in a million years would I have expected a Scarlet Witch reference where Wanda is supporting women's wrongs, or a scene where Kristen Stewart is wearing a Batman tee years before Robert Pattinson was cast, but I have to admit I was a little shook by the foreshadowing of it all. In all seriousness, Kristen Stewart's acting is forever 10 out of 10, and I think if you like her, and you like slow burn character-driven stories of women grappling with their identity, reputation, and fame in a youth-obsessed society, I think you might like this. Then I watched The Menu, which I filmed a movie commentary for, so I won't go into too much detail here. Also, it's just kind of a weird film to review due to the nature of it and how it deals with people inserting their opinions into fields where they're not even involved in. But speaking more as a student and someone who would like to eventually be a screenwriter, I love how it handled tension, and they knew how to really turn the tables and keep us all on our toes, especially in those last few scenes. Also, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, and the rest of the cast all really knocked their performances out of the park, so it was just an enjoyable watch for me. I then rewatched the entirety of Miss Marvel with my dad who hadn't seen it yet, and I mean, y'all already know I love it. Even though this was the second time I was watching it, I still teared up in 4 out of the 6 episodes, which I think means it definitely hit the emotional beats it was going for. It's a coming-of-age story with amazingly charismatic and charming characters, realistic teen dialogue, which seems to be a hard thing for shows to hit these days, and it has a lot of heart, so I am always glad to rewatch it and spend some time in her world. And then I watched season 1 of Miracle Workers. I can blame my insomnia for this one. It's an odd little comedy about angels trying to save the earth from God's apathy, ego, and destructive ways. I think Daniel Radcliffe was absolutely the selling point, and when it was funny, it was really funny. I do wish a few more of the jokes landed for me, but that's just me. Personally, I think I just prefer to watch Good Omens again, but this wasn't an awful way to spend some sleepless nights, and I am considering watching season 2, although apparently it's an anthology show, so everything's getting switched up. But if you like workplace style comedies, satires dealing with faith, and Daniel Radcliffe, you might like this. Then I watched Empire of Light and had some mixed feelings about this one too. Here's the thing, the cinematography is gorgeous, the vintage beachside atmosphere is built really well, and the acting is just 10 out of 10 all around. I came for Olivia Colman and ended up staying for Michael Ward, but both of them were incredible and brought a lot of life to a script that wasn't my fave. They both play employees at a movie theater and are dealing with their own struggles. Olivia Colman's character is living with mental illness, and Michael Ward's character is bombarded with racism throughout the entire script. And I really don't think the film handled the representation of either of those issues well at all. It just didn't work that well in my opinion, but I wish it did, because truly both of them brought their A game, and I would say if you like either of them, it might still be worth it to watch for their performances alone. Plus, I really did love the cinematography, so I was kind of torn on my opinion when it ended. And then I watched Babylon, and look, I recognize this movie is good for the right audience, but that audience surely was not me. I wanted to like it, I had heard good things, and I can understand why people enjoyed it, but for me, I wish there was more emphasis on character and less on spectacle. It felt like 3 hours of straight chaos. The camera work was super impressive though, and it was, again, a gorgeous film, and I know it works for a lot of others. I would just personally rather take the slower Irma Vep over this any day, or even like Hail Caesar to capture the chaoticness of the film industry. This just had a lot of shit, and I do mean that literally. By the time we got to Tobey Maguire's part, I was ready to turn it off. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I didn't turn it off. I kept going because everyone was like, it's amazing, and I was like, all right, but it was just, it was exhausting. It was an exhausting watch, which if that was their intention, great job. Anyways, then I watched Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and funnily enough, that worked better than Babylon to make me appreciate movies in the film industry. It doesn't focus on filmmaking or anything, but I finished this movie so happy and fulfilled that it really reminded me why I like to watch films. It's super fluffy, I know that, but there's a lot of depth in Mrs. Harris going to Paris to purchase that dress. It's so inspiring to see her knowing her worth and inspiring others to see theirs as well. And even though some of it was predictable, it was so heartwarming and endearing and optimistic that I couldn't help but love it. If you're looking for a cute, stress-free film to cheer you up, this is the one. And then I watched Your Place or Mine, a new rom-com starring Reese Witherspoon as a single mom. I have nothing to really say about this. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst. If you asked me for a rom-com recommendation, I would not recommend this. And if you asked me to recommend a film starring Reese Witherspoon, this would also not be first on the list. But if you enjoy a good friends to lovers storyline with some cheesiness and a handful of fun characters, it's a decent enough way to spend 2 hours. Then I watched Operation Mincemeat, which was a perfectly acceptable British spy thriller set during World War II. This one follows what you'd expect of that genre almost to a T. I personally could do without the love triangle they try to insert, but it's fine. It wasn't particularly tense out of all the thrillers I've seen, but it did invite me into the world and I was thoroughly engrossed for the entire runtime, so I enjoyed it. If you like the slow burn World War II but on the home front genre, you'll probably like this film. Then I watched 13 Going on 30 for the first time since I was a child, and I genuinely had a lot of fun. It's such an emotional, heartfelt film with great acting and some great lessons for all ages. I did do a commentary video for it, so I won't fangirl over it here for hours, but I really love how it encourages keeping the whimsical, childlike wonder alive as you grow up. Then I visited Jenna and we watched Catherine Called Birdy, and I don't think it was my type of movie. Medieval anything just isn't my favorite setting, even if it is a coming-of-age film, and while I did enjoy Birdy's character, I couldn't really get into this or the script. I think it may just be the medievalness of it all, but also there was such a weird angle where Birdy's dad 100% caused the biggest problem they have, but then he's cheered on for fixing it when it was his fault to begin with, and he should have been the one solving the problem. Andrew Scott was definitely doing his best though, and Bella Ramsey was absolutely the heart and soul of this thing for me, so I would say if you like films starring young women coming of age, or medieval settings with modern-ish dialogue, it might be worth a watch. I personally wish they utilized Billie Piper more, but that's just me. I think it's probably good for the right target audience, so I hope the right people find this film and love it. Then we watched Archipelago. This is now the second film by Joanna Hogg I have watched. Both of them her earliest work, so maybe it's different in her later stuff, but both films I've seen feel like I'm watching someone's vacation clips in real time. They just feel like an early 2010s artistic travel vlog, and I don't say that in a bad or judgy way, because it definitely adds to the sense of familiarity her films have, and I think she absolutely captures those awkward family vacation vibes. In this one in particular, I enjoyed the acknowledgement of the class differences and the analysis she brought to the film in that regard. At times it feels a little too slow for my tastes, but I don't dislike it. And honestly, I really want to watch one of her newer films just to compare it to the two oldest ones and see how similar they are. Overall, I think she accomplishes everything she sets out to accomplish, and I think that's all that matters. Then we watched Pride, and y'all, this film had me tearing up. It is so good. It's based on a true story where, in 1984, gay and lesbian activists in London came together to help the miners striking in Wales. There's an exploration of homophobia and bigotry in small towns, but mainly the focus is on the solidarity between the groups and finding the common ground between them. Watching them fight back against their circumstances together is so inspiring, and I loved the characterization of everyone, especially because all ages were included. There's just something that makes me so happy to see older women and older folks embracing themselves and finding joy and love in the world. It definitely has now become a future comfort watch for me. Then I watched Women Talking, and I enjoyed that one too. It definitely felt like a stage play, which y'all know I always love, and it felt like a pretty accurate portrayal of almost every thought going through your head after a traumatic incident like that happens. I loved how this film showed the nuances in the women's opinions and allowed them to show every emotion. They were allowed to be angry, hurt, scared, frustrated, annoyed at their situation, but it also allowed them moments to come together to support each other. What happened to them is awful, and I love how this film focused on their thoughts and their reactions to it, not the event itself. I truly did not know what the women were going to decide to do by the end of it, and I love how it turned out. It was just a really intense film and really important, and I'm very glad I watched it. I finished the month up by finally watching Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I actually filmed a commentary for it, which will be coming as soon as I finish editing it, so I'm not going to spend too long talking about it here, but I loved it. It was so good. I was frickin' sobbing. It hit all the emotional beats. I love mother-daughter stories. I love stories emphasizing kindness and family. It was just everything I love in one film, and I am so glad I finally watched it. Anyways, that's everything I watched this month. I feel like it was a pretty good month. There were a few like mediocre films, but there were also a few that I really, really loved. You know, I really need to work a little harder though on tackling my Oscar watch list, because that is in like 2 weeks. I made a list like a month and a half ago. 2 months now? I made a list a while ago of films I wanted to watch before the Oscars, and I think I've seen like 5 of them. So will I finish in time? That's a question for the ages. That is unfortunately always the question of my life. I don't know, we will see how many more of the Oscar films I get to. But I hope you guys had a very good month. I hope you guys watched some things that you loved this month. And I hope you guys all had a great February. So yeah, huge thank you to you guys if you sat through this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want more movie and fandom related content. And I will see you guys for the next one. I swear to you, if this video is blurry, I am going to be so sad. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. See ya.